pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Zoom webinar participation is available for members of the public. The Zoom webinar ID and link are available on the posted agenda on the city website. May we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Rocamora.
Here.
Commissioner Rock.
Here.
Commissioner Mora.
Here.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Present.
Commissioner Meeks. Commissioner Purnell. Chairperson McKay-Day.
Here. I'd just like to mention both Commissioner Meeks and Purnell were out sick, so we wish them well. And then can we now have staff introductions?
Teresa Salcedo, Administrative Aide.
Courtney Grossman, Planning Manager.
Chris Callahan, City Attorney.
A. Pedroza, Assistant Finance Director.
All right, welcome everyone. We will now open for public comments. Public comments generally are limited to 2 minutes per speaker. The chair may further limit the time for public comments depending on the agenda schedule. Are there any comments from the public regarding items not on today's agenda? Okay, seeing none from the chamber, are there any on Zoom?
No comments on Zoom.
Okay, and if you are on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature if you'd like to make a comment. Moving on to consent ID number 26-115, approval of minutes from March 4th, 2026 meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Rocamora?
No questions or comments?
Commissioner Ruck?
No questions, comments.
Commissioner Mora?
No questions or comments.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Questions, no comments.
Can we get a motion and a second?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
All right, with a motion from Commissioner Mora and a second from Commissioner Ruck, we will have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Rocamora.
Yes.
Commissioner Rock.
Yes.
Commissioner Mora.
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Yes.
Chairperson McKay-Day.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now we have administrative reports. ID number 26-093, Development Impact Fees Annual Adjustment. Maria Contreras, Management Analyst, will introduce and present this item.
Hello. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Maria is on her way, but I will be stepping in. So today we are going to be asking you simply to receive this as an informational item. We normally, in the past, have not brought forward the development impact fees to the Commission, but in an effort to really, for transparency and to inform more of the public, that's why we're bringing this forward to you. So again, this is just going to be an overview. There's no action required of the Commission. So state law basically allows the city, and this is part of our municipal code, it allows us to assess development impact fees for developments, and this is to account for impacts, to mitigate impacts that development might have, say, on infrastructure. And so what we do is we assess the fees, we adjust the fees annually based on the engineering use record construction construction cost index, sorry. The adjustment for this year is 2.8%. And so that is the recommendation that staff will be putting before the City Council. What you have in this graph is basically a history of what the adjustments have been in the past. And what we have done, none of these figures show a diversion or from what the ENR CCI is, so the construction cost index. So each of the last 5 years, we have followed the construction cost index. Okay. Can you advance that? Thank you. So development impact fees, what you're seeing here is the fees that we assess for. We collect the commercial, industrial are within that box. So street trees, our utilities, so our storm, our sanitary, traffic impact fees, and police and fire. And then in addition to that, we also collect, when it's residential, we also collect for community service. So those are for parks and for library and recreation. Okay, perfect. So these exhibits, what you're going to be seeing, and it was attached to the staff report, is this was the current fee and the proposed fees for the various. So I'm just going to skip through this. So some of them you'll see are based on square footage of the buildings, and then others are based on unit counts. The ones that are based on unit counts, for example, this West Area Specific Plan and the Central Area Specific Plan, these were based off of the development agreements with these specific projects. And this is the table that we're both proposed, existing and proposed, current and proposed. Several years ago, the city did a study which broke up the fees based on the size of the units. And so what you're seeing here is for these public facilities, for these services, these are the proposed fees. So part of what we are required to do when we move forward with adjustment of the fees is to provide you, or provide the council, a balance and a report of where we are with the revenues and expenditures for the various fees. So this table provides for you that statement of revenues and expenditures. And as of March 2nd, we have an estimated balance of 20 million. And so some of this we do have within our, specifically, I guess more within our different programs, we do have master plans that define which projects would be funded through these development impact fees. So this action is not a project under CEQA, and we will be conducting noticing as required by state law. We have been doing, like I said earlier, we normally don't bring it to the commission, but we have been asked to, to try to make our process more transparent and so that more people are aware of what's happening. So we do normally do some outreach, say to the development community. We have sent out notices to the development community, to the Central Coast Builders Association, along with the Chamber of Commerce. We are scheduled to go before the Finance Committee on April 7th and to go to Council on April 21st. Any questions?
All right, thank you for your report. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Rocamora?
I just have a question on, you have the fees, but to a normal person who looks at it, what are the fees? It doesn't describe what it is, it just shows what you're charging.
So let me go back up right here. So with regards to the infrastructure fees, those are, like I said, those are fees to facilitate improvements to that infrastructure to accommodate impacts from development. So say, we're building or we're going to be building a number of approving subdivisions, right, that are coming in the future growth area. All that development has impacts. So we've gone through and through our various studies, we have analyzed what percentage, say, of the sewer flow that's coming from that development, how much of that is impacting our existing infrastructure. So how much, does a pipe need to be upsized in order to accommodate that? And so that's the delta that gets studied, and that's where we come up with how much needs to be collected from development to make those improvements.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions, Commissioner Rook?
Yes, I do. Could you go back to page 1? I'm sorry. How about 3? Page 3. Okay, so it's going to go up 2.8% of what you showed us on page 7 or 8, right?
Correct. That's the proposal.
Okay. And now I notice that trees are often waived. Why is that?
So that trees, we waive them if the developer does the installation of the trees.
Okay, got that. That's fine. And then could you go to page 8?
I don't know exactly which one page 8 is.
Yeah, I'm looking at the number down on the bottom. So is that the one? No, next one. Sorry, I'm just trying to look at the number at the bottom of the page. How about the next page?
Can you flip to the next page? I can't.
Is there a next
control.
page?
There you go.
Okay, estimated fund balance, 20.9 million. Why?
A lot of that actually came in through recent development with the Amazon that gave us a very large boost in our traffic impact fees.
Traffic impact fees.
So if you look at the balance with regards to traffic, that alone is 13.9 million.
Got it, okay. Will Amazon be required to put in a bunch of trees?
Amazon is required to install trees, yes.
Okay. And the council will determine where that 20.9 million goes, right?
Well, like I said, we've already done a number of studies that say this is what the focus is. So we have our sewer master plan, we have our traffic, our TIF, traffic impact fee program. And those already dictate, so we've already studied what needs to be improved based on what the general plan was saying that where the growth was going to go.
Okay. And then I guess, what about I don't see any in lieu fees for housing. You have some big houses here if you go to the next slide. Are in lieu or low income and moderate income housing included in every subdivision, or are there in lieu fees instead of including them in a subdivision? And if they're in lieu fees, how much are those in lieu fees?
Well, I don't know that that's really part of the impact fee program. Courtney, could you?
Perhaps the in lieu fees are applicable to inclusionary housing, which would be offsetting not providing the typical affordable units. I
Right.
think it's a different issue.
But isn't that part of development fees?
It's part of the city's housing requirements in the municipal code. I can't remember what chapter that's in, but it's a kind of a different
Okay, kind of a
angle.
different beast over here.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for your presentation. Thank you.
Any questions, Commissioner Mora?
Thank you so much for the presentation. I thought it was really informative. I know that you mentioned in the staff report that there's a public noticing requirement, which is fairly standard. Which local newspaper will this appear in?
We typically publish in the weekly.
Okay. That's great. I asked just because, I know that it's a requirement and that you have to fulfill the requirement and meet that baseline expectation. But I'm wondering if there's a missed opportunity to also just do, I love that you're engaging with the chamber, that you're engaging with other groups, but there's always, a greater need for the general public to understand these things as well. And I know that the city has a robust social media presence. So has there been any discussion on perhaps doing maybe not the same public notice that you do for the newspaper because they're fairly dry, but you know what I mean, like some type of online digital notice, just to ensure that people who may have not been, maybe even people who are part of the chamber who may have missed that communication end up getting it.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions, Commissioner Gutierrez?
Just a quick question. What's the feedback you're getting from the developers and the actual construction community as far as the increases on the fees?
These are pretty standard, and if based on what you saw, let me go back here for the historic chart. These actually are, it goes with the market, so it's no big surprise. The year that we did get some response was really the 8%. All the other years, we really haven't gotten much feedback other than, acknowledging that they've received it.
Yeah, the only reason why I'm asking that is because from a builder perspective, our company pulls permits in different cities, and I think Salinas is probably one of the most reasonably priced fees or rates that we have, because there are cities where, believe it or not, permit fees are about 4 times what we pay here. So that's what I'm, and I know this from firsthand because I get permits all the time. But the other question was, why was the 8% raise so drastic on that year? I mean, was there a specific reason why it went from an average of 2 to 3% to 8%?
Well, that was, like I said, these figures come from the Engineering News Record, which is a publication. And every month they actually publish what the state of, the construction industry is. And so what we do is we compare each January. So each January we make that comparison with the prior January. And in that year, the increase was of 8%.
That's pretty much all I have.
And I think my questions were answered, but it was more along the lines of when you're saying we only raised to what was published, but if we compared to see where we stood in the first place, are we just raising, but we're not seeing what the going rate was out there? So when was the last time there was a comparison done?
Well, what we do, it's not really a comparison of where we are with other jurisdictions. It's based on the impacts to our infrastructure, right? So we do the studies that say, based on the general plan, this is what the forecast is for development. And based on that are the studies that say, okay, if development happens, say, north of Baranda, this will be the impacts. So you can't really compare our jurisdiction to other jurisdictions because it's not the same impacts. So it's really just to mitigate the impacts.
Okay, thank you for answering that. Now we will open up for public comment. Are there comments from the public regarding this item? Are there any on Zoom?
No comments on Zoom.
All right, we will now close public comment on this item. Are there any additional questions or comments from the commissioners to members of the city staff? Commissioner Rocamora.
No questions or comments.
Commissioner Ruck?
No questions or comments, thank you.
Commissioner Mora?
Nope.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Thank you for that presentation.
Thank you.
Yes, and I have no other questions, but thank you very much for presenting. All right, moving on to ID number 26-105, status of general fund and road improvement, capital improvement projects. Abe Pedroza, Assistant Finance Director, will introduce and present this item. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Abe Pedroza, Assistant Finance Director.
I'm here to present a status review of the city's capital improvement projects. This information was presented to the Finance Committee on February 17th. At the meeting, Mayor Donahue requested that staff present to the various boards and committees, including the Planning Commission. Capital improvement projects, or CIPs, are normally appropriated annually in June of each year as a result of the budget development process and subsequent council adoption. However, CIPs can be appropriated at any time during the year by council action, for example, at the mid-year budget review. CIPs are funded by a variety of sources, including the general funds, special revenue funds, enterprise funds, development impact fees, assessment districts, and construction grants. Any unspent appropriations at year-end are carried forward to the next fiscal year. For the purpose of this review, city staff focused on the general funds and road improvement funds. The general funds are comprised of the general fund, Measure E and Measure G. At December 31st, 2025, there was $23.8 million in unexpended and unencumbered CIP budget. Staff has developed project timelines for most of these CIPs as detailed in Attachment A of the staff report. Included in these timelines are project beginning and ending dates, as well as key milestones for each project. Also, as part of the review, staff is recommending $2.4 million in general fund CIPs be reallocated to different projects in order to move those forward, and $60,000 be deappropriated, mostly due to the project being complete. A deappropriation means the budget would return to fund balance for future use. Road improvement funds represent gas tax, Measure X, and SB1. At December 31st, there was $27.1 million in unexpended and unencumbered CIP budget. It is important to note that $21 million of this total was recently appropriated as part of the fiscal year 25-26 CIP budget. Again, staff has developed project timelines for these CIPs, as well as recommendations to reallocate approximately $1 million and deappropriate another $238,000. Okay, the next two slides provide a detailed look at the recommended budget reallocations for general fund CIPs. The proposed shifting of funds consists of moving budget from a CIP to its corresponding operating account, consolidating vehicle CIPs under the Vehicle Replacement Fund, grouping similar CIPs together, for example, street trees and tree planting on the upper right, and moving budget to projects in need of funding as mentioned earlier. Here are some more proposed reallocations in the general funds, as noted on the left. The industrial waste treatment facility flood damage repairs project is complete, so staff is recommending moving the remaining budget to projects in need of funding. On the lower right, as an example, Closter Park improvements and Closter Park revitalization will be consolidated under one CIP. Staff is also requesting the deappropriation of $60,000, meaning the budget would be returned to the general fund and Measure G fund balance as detailed on this slide. As you can see, most are residual amounts left over from completed projects. The only item of note is $50,000 that was allocated to improvements at 342 Front Street. However, the city recently sold the property and therefore the budget is no longer needed. For the road funds, staff is requesting these reallocations. These are simply cleanup, as staff is trying to group similar CIPs together in the area of city trees, San Juan Grade Road, pedestrian improvements, and bridge maintenance. Staff is recommending the deappropriation of $238,000 in the road funds as detailed on the slide now. The funds would be returned to Measure X and gas tax and would be available for use on new projects as determined by council at a future date. Although the last few slides detail the recommended reallocations and deappropriations, I did want to point out that a majority of the CIP review entailed comprehensive timelines developed by city staff. In total, there were timelines produced for 39 general fund CIPs and 21 road fund CIPs. These timelines are presented in Attachment A of the staff report. Staff will present the recommended budget reallocations and deappropriations for both the general funds and road improvement funds to Council as part of the fiscal year 25-26 mid-year budget review on March 24th. Lastly, I wanted to mention that the amounts listed for reallocation and deappropriation have been assigned an up to dollar figure. Amounts could be lower based on project expenditures between December 2025 and council action in March of 26. Going forward, staff will be providing routine CIP reviews consisting of the following: council and staff feedback to ensure fiscal resources are available for each project, staff capability to complete each project, community disruptions based on size and scope of the project, alignment with council priorities balanced with reasonable workload, prioritization of projects, ability to deliver projects, and removal of completed or obsolete projects. And that concludes my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Pedroza, for your presentation. Are there any questions from the commissioners to members of city staff regarding this presentation? Commissioner Rocamora?
Is there, I do have questions about the funding for basically these trees that are damaging all the sidewalks. And, you know, the main complaint with the city is sidewalks. And are we addressing that? And there's many sidewalks all over the city that's very dangerous. And, you know, we're talking about allocating money, and I see that they put $3,750 to the trees. Those trees need to come out. You know, I have a big magnolia tree in front of my building that's caused over $5,000 worth of damage, what I had to pay out of my pocket, that it was a city tree. Why am I paying it when it's a city tree? And so many of the residents are complaining of all these trees that the city planted that are damaging the sidewalks, and now they're saying the sidewalks are our responsibility. But we need to basically put money towards these trees to take them out and put trees that don't damage our sidewalks, if we're the ones who have to take care of it. Has that been addressed?
I can jump in to try to help answer that. So we did do a tree master plan as well, urban forest master plan. And one of the recommendations, to your point, one of the recommendations was basically to not plant magnolias in this area. But with regards to the sidewalks, when we come through and we do improvements, because the city also does have goals for a tree canopy, we do look at the specific trees. So we're not going to just say, you know, blanket remove all the trees. We do have goals for planting trees, but we're also cognizant of the damage that trees are causing. So we are looking specifically based on that study at what trees can be planted, what's the best place for the tree planting. And then when we're coming through with our sidewalk projects, we are removing some of the trees that are conflicts.
Okay, so what about the trees just like in front of my building? I've complained and they said, oh, the tree's healthy. Yeah, but your tree is causing me money. Okay, it's already been, I'm the probably the second owner of this property, but it's been taken out, that tree's taken out our pipes 4 times, and we'd have to pay out of pocket. Why should we be paying out of pocket when it's your tree? And I've complained on Salinas Connect and nothing's been done. So what do we do on that?
Well, we are working through, you do know we do have a very long list when it comes to our sidewalk maintenance, and we are working through that in trying to develop, say, a more comprehensive plan that addresses the damages of the sidewalks.
Because, you know, I've seen the city repair sidewalks because of these magnolia trees and other trees. But then a few months later, you see the repair that they did and the sidewalks coming back up.
So I think what you're mentioning is when we come in and do temporary repairs, And that's when we do the asphalt patching, or we shave a bit, grind down a bit of the concrete. So those are only temporary repairs. When we do the long-term repairs, we actually look at the trees. And at that point, that's when we do tree removals if that's required.
Not necessarily. On mine, they did a concrete repair. And they did a concrete repair again. And then it came to me, and I did a concrete repair and cut part of that tree. And that tree's still there. I've been asking the city to take that tree out, and they're not acting upon it because it's already costed, thousands of dollars.
We can take a look at that. If you send me the information, we can take a look at that
Yeah,
specific
if you give me your
case.
information, because I've been complaining, and I've even talked to the mayor and see what he could do, because that tree is just costing me money. Okay?
Okay,
Thank you.
Any questions, Commissioner Rock?
Yep. Could you go back to page 1? Sorry, it takes my little bitty brain a while to catch up on these things.
Maybe slide 2, you mean?
Back.
Not the
Okay.
title. Yeah.
Now, sorry, go back again. Go forward. Page 3. Okay, I saw something in here. Yes, actually. How do you, some of these things came from Measure G, some came from Measure X, some came from Measure E, some came from the general fund. When you reallocate these, how do you know how much came from G, E, general fund, et cetera, et cetera?
We track that, yeah.
You track it.
Yeah.
How do you check? How do you know if a job saved $30,000? How do you know how much of that came from Measure X or Measure G?
So
How would you know how to reallocate that $30,000 back to those funds?
whatever's remaining on the project, we would, reallocate that to another CIP, and the funding source would remain the same.
Percentage-wise, based on what went out of those funds?
No, it's just whatever the remaining budget is. That's what we're going to reallocate, any unspent funds.
Okay, but then that might not be equal to what went out of that fund. Okay, am I too far in the
I'm not
weeds?
following.
No, I think it's a good question, Commissioner, but all of the appropriations and de-appropriations are documented through council resolutions, which identify the specific funds from which money or funds are being transferred out or transferred in. So there's a historical record of all of those transfers. And so when those are transferred back into the original funds, it's dollar for dollar. That money goes right back into that same account.
Thank you.
So we do have a record of all of those
Okay,
transfers.
you answered the question. Thank you. I just know we got Measure G coming up one of these days in terms of voters and, well,
Yeah, we
frankly-
have financial software that tracks that, and
Yeah, thank you.
a lot
That's
of Excel
really what I
spreadsheets
need.
as well.
That-
Sure.
Mr. Callahan, thank you. And then there's one more here. Could you go to the next page? Something about the Cesar Chavez Trail. Could you help me out with that? Where's the Cesar Chavez Trail, and is it finished? There it is. Cesar Chavez Trail, 9361, 24,882 to playground improvements at parks. Where's the Cesar Chavez Trail?
The Cesar Chavez Trail was completed. This is a trail that, it's a decomposed granite trail that extends through Cesar Chavez Park. And I believe it terminates on Circle Drive. I believe that's the street.
Okay, thank you. And then sorry, I have a lot of questions. I noticed several jurisdictions have stopped taking roads, subdivisions, roadways from subdivisions and other things into the public sphere and having homeowners associations take care of their own roadways within a subdivision. What is the policy in the city of Salinas for that?
So for developments, it really depends what the specific plan or what the planning document, the overlaying planning document has indicated for long-term maintenance. Most of what ours indicate is that the city would like to see a lighting lighting and maintenance district established, or that there's another instrument that gets established in order for long-term maintenance to continue.
Okay, great. So an instrument gets made and documented. Great.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Just to chime in on that, because we're in the middle of about half a dozen subdivisions right now. Some of the subdivisions include streets and roadway networks that don't meet city standards, so they're pretty good candidates for private care and feeding.
Any questions, Commissioner Mora?
Yeah, looking at the slide 10, the one before the questions one, you know, you outline future reviews, and a lot of them are council heavy, I guess is the way that I would describe them, right? So there's like council and staff feedback of to ensure fiscal resources, alignment with city council priorities, et cetera, et cetera. Are there any other, and I'm sure maybe they're already kind of embedded in some of these future reviews, but is there any kind of diversity, equity, inclusion metric that the city's using with these projects? Anything perhaps that is being, I know with the county, they typically score the county of Monterey, they typically score their CIP projects, they give them a GARE score, or Governing for Racial Equity metric, on that is supposed to at least try to account for the impact that it would have, that the project would have. Because like even right now, I'm looking at these and the general fund CIPs, and they vary drastically, right, in size. And I hear the tension in this between wanting to prioritize things that are actionable, that are doable, that are within the city's fiscal capabilities, and not just having like this multi-million-dollar like pipe dream that will never be done because the money's not there and because staff can't complete it. But I also realize that as the city continues to grow and there's a deferred maintenance on different things, that there will be more and more projects that might, you know, have high impact and not meet any of these alignments. Like they may not be within the city's budget, or you know what I mean, or how do we account for the changing nature of the council? You know, are there any other safeguards here to ensure that those types of projects are prioritized?
Sorry, I'm not understanding the question.
Yeah, I think I understand the question, and maybe Adriana can help out here. There are no current programs in place which take those factors into consideration that you're expressing, Commissioner. But I do want to acknowledge and point out that our general plan update includes an environmental justice component, and so those factors are part of the consideration that's being undertaking and developing that element of our updated general plan. So we currently don't have those factors in place, but we are working to incorporate them into the general plan.
Thank you.
Plus, I'd like to add also that when we develop the different planning documents, say Safe Routes to School, right? There is a significant amount of outreach that happens to make sure that we are addressing some of these factors and that we are incorporating the community needs into these plans. So these plans already have a lot of that incorporated.
Thank you.
All right, any questions, Commissioner Gutierrez?
None.
All right, and I have, it just kind of probably just more clarification. I want to make sure I'm understanding. If you go back a couple slides, I'll tell you where. One more. Right there. Yeah, so for example, if I see restroom replacement, $40,000, so you're saying this was a CIP that you've considered completed? So all the restrooms have been renovated or replacement? What, like, for example, is this in parks or?
Yeah, so for that one in particular, they're actually taking that out of the CIP. It doesn't really belong in a CIP, and they're moving it to the park maintenance operating budget.
Okay, that was going to be my second question to that. So when it goes under park maintenance, though, so, okay, help me understand. So if it's a CIP, who directed that in the first place? Was that city council?
Correct.
Then when it goes into park maintenance, who now directs it?
City council will have to
accept this as part of the mid-year budget review next Tuesday.
Who directs to make sure that there's actually restrooms replaced?
The department.
Or is it now lost in
Yeah,
the
the
general
department,
fund
the
of
department
them?
head and the department staff will have to
Okay, so
allocate
it goes
those
to
funds.
staff level and no longer reported back?
I'm sorry?
So it goes to a staff level and no longer reported back?
They'll use those funds in their operating account to improve restrooms or however they see fit.
And if I may, part of the goal with these is to take money that's been parked in CIP budgets and actually put those funds to use by incorporating them into the department's operating budgets, right? So that doesn't mean that that restroom replacement project goes away. It just means that those funds are allocated to the department's operating budget so that they get taken care of, as opposed to just money sitting around in these CIPs, which are essentially just savings
I
accounts.
guess, yeah, so then just, I'm trying to understand, I'm assuming we're all making moves to make us more efficient and, so we get things
That's
done, but
correct.
I'm trying to understand that part. So when it was just sitting as a CIP, it wasn't getting the same type of attention that Parks Maintenance can handle?
Correct.
Okay. And then, yeah, I just had a quick question, because I've been out at Gloucester Park a lot. We're doing, our Rotary's doing the rotunda, but the city handled through their grants a lot of improvement. So I'm wondering what part of here, again, so this is part of revitalization. Will that have to be part of the grant then, or do you know how that separates out? Because we had the Parks grant, and I know they told us they can only do certain part. That's why we're jumping in and helping. So I was just trying to understand the monies there.
I do know that project is funded by a variety of funding sources. This is just the general fund portion of that, 36,000, and they're just consolidating those two similar CIPs. So it's generally going to be used for the same purpose, but just getting the funding under one CIP.
In a different cost account?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I think that kind of answers, my other question I was going to address was the athletic field repairs, like where was that? And then it's just going to park maintenance.
That's another one that's
Yeah.
going to the operating account.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That was my question. All right. We'll now open for public comment on this item. Are there any comments from the public regarding this item? All right. Are there any on Zoom?
No comments on Zoom.
Okay. Well, go ahead and close the public comment on this item. Are there any additional questions or comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Rockamora.
No additional comments, questions?
Commissioner Ruck.
No, thank you.
Commissioner Mora.
No, thank you.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
No questions, no comments.
And I just again would like to thank you for your presentation. All right, we'll move on to public hearings. We have none. Any future agenda items?
Yes, I have one for April 1st. This would be the Planning Commission's version of the Permit Center annual report.
Okay, so the next regular planning commission meeting is scheduled for April 1st. Who will be able to attend by show of hands? All right, we should expect to have a quorum. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.